think it's already recording.
Okay, it looks like there's two recordings happening. There's an AI recording happening and that. So, Jared, why don't we get started here? You want to do a quick little introduction of yourself, and then we can get started with the COGS presentation on everything EV.
Yeah, thanks, Salima. So yeah, I'm Jared Wright. I'm a senior air quality planner at the North Central Texas Council of Governments. I work under Lori Clark in our Clean Fuels and Energy team. I've been there about 3 years, and so we are hosted within the transportation department, and I'll get into more details about what that means in a second. But I lead a lot of our infrastructure efforts for all alternative fuel vehicles. And so a lot of that focus is electric right now, especially light duty electric vehicles. But our work encompasses all alternative fuels, as well as all vehicle sectors, all the way up to medium, heavy duty, and equipment as well.
Okay, perfect. Sounds good.
All right, so let me know if y'all can't see this. I'll go ahead and get started.
Yeah, I can see it perfectly. Thank you.
Great. So yeah, just a brief background on who we are if y'all aren't familiar with the Council of Governments. So we are the regional planning agency for all 16 counties you see on the map there. And then for the 12 counties outlined in black, we are the Metropolitan Planning Organization. So we do all the transportation planning for those counties. And then also we host the local Clean Cities Coalition under our Clean Fuels and Energy team. And Clean Cities is a national program from the Department of Energy, and we are sort of the local chapter for DFW for Clean Cities. And you'll find Clean Cities coalitions all across the country and almost all the major metro areas. And they're also working to expand all the rural areas as well. But in Texas, we have sister coalitions in Austin, San Antonio, and Houston. And so just a little background on like what we do on our team. So as I mentioned, we are the Clean Fuels and Energy team, and also all of our team members are staff of DFW Clean Cities. And so we have three main focus areas on our team of clean vehicle initiatives, alternative fuel infrastructure initiatives, and energy integration and community readiness. So our clean vehicle initiatives obviously work a lot more with direct vehicle work. So there could be a lot of work with local fleets to connect them to funding, things like that, and analyze their fleet data to determine what could be electrified or converted to alternative fuels. And also host a lot of our public facing events that I'll speak a little bit about. But we do a lot of events around the region at conferences, public facing things for the public to get them interested in electric vehicles, things like that. And then the alternative fuel infrastructure initiatives that I lead is focused a lot on building out the infrastructure to support these vehicles and making sure it's built out equitably and accessibly for all people in the region. And that also makes sure that it's encompasses all vehicle types. So you see on the bottom there that our work encompasses all vehicle types, like I mentioned. So all the way down to light duty, up to large, medium, heavy duty tractors, as well as equipment too, like non-road equipment. We've done projects lawn mowing equipment, airport equipment, things like that. And then also we have the energy integration community readiness. And so this part of our team really works to make sure that when these electric vehicles are charging, that the grid is as clean as possible and as reliable as possible, since that's very important, especially in Texas over the past couple of years. So we're just trying to look at the whole picture here for electrifying transportation and other methods of alternative fuels to reduce emissions and improve air quality in the region. And so the scope of our work includes all alternative fuels. We are fuel neutral, but today I'll be focusing on EVs. And that is where a lot of our work is currently, just because for a lot of the momentum and the market is right now. But we also do work to look at auto reduction measures, since those are often like really low-hanging fruit to reduce emissions and improve fuel economy, and other new mobility choices. We have some projects I'll briefly mention on like drone delivery, and we've worked with like scooters and e-bikes, things like that. So really work across all different sectors here related to transportation. And so a little bit more background on what we do. So we do sometimes offer funding support. More often, we will just connect people to currently open funding opportunities at the federal or state level. And so we can assist local stakeholders with finding funding opportunities that'll work for them. And then at times, we're also able to offer our own funding. And so that's something that I'll get into more later. And then we also offer technical assistance. So to pair up with that funding, we hold a lot of webinars, workshops, things like that throughout the year to make sure our stakeholders are educated on these topics. And then we can also look at fleet data or specific projects and see exactly how we can help and again connect funding or offer more technical resources and tools for analysis. And then we are all planners here at the Council of Governments. So we do a lot of planning, especially on the infrastructure side. And so I'll speak a bit about the Texas EV charging plan. That is part of the federal money that is flowing to Texas and the region to build out fast EV charging infrastructure. And then we also do a lot of work on alternative fuel corridors, especially for medium and heavy duty vehicles. And we've completed an organic waste RNG feasibility study in conjunction with a different department here at the Council of Governments. And then last year, it's just raising awareness of all of our projects and other ways to reduce emissions and improve air quality in the region. So we have a big National Drive Electric Week event each year for people interested in EVs or people that own EVs to come out and show off their vehicle and have other people check it out, learn about it. So we just held that in October, and that's a big event we hold each year. And also we have in October, November each year is our Fleet Recognition Awards, where we recognize local fleet managers for their efforts to reduce emissions. And all throughout the year, we're, like I said, have presences at different conferences and things. That's really just trying to get the word out about what we do and how we can help. And so now again, the side of the meat of my presentation. So just kind of level set here, just some basics about electric vehicles and the different acronyms you see when you're researching this stuff. So first, there is plug-in hybrid electric vehicles. So these have both an electric motor, battery, and a gasoline engine. And then they can actually plug in and charge to charge the battery and run entirely off just the battery without using the gas. And so there are conventional hybrids that don't plug in, and then plug-in hybrid, hence the name, actually plugs in and cannot use any gas at all. And so these are, I think, a great bridge technology and a good option for a lot of people who may have more range anxiety, since you still have that gasoline range when you need it, but you can run off entirely electric for, say, 20, 35, 40 miles and make your commute all electric and not use any gasoline at all. But they are a bit more complex and could have increased maintenance costs compared to the next item here, battery electric or all electric vehicles. So this is the typical, Teslas, Chevy Bolts, all electric vehicles that have just an electric motor or motors and a battery, and then we'll plug in and charge. But these will have a much larger battery and take a longer time to charge, but also much more range from the battery itself. And then last here, fuel cell electric vehicles. So these will use compressed hydrogen and electric motor and use hydrogen fuel to charge the battery and don't need to charge at all, but would use a hydrogen refueling station, which there currently aren't any of in Texas that are commercially available. But this is an area that we're seeing a lot of growth and interest, especially in the medium and heavy duty sectors. And so background here on the types of charging infrastructure. So you may have heard of these different levels about charging and stuff. And so level 1 is basically just plugging into a wall, and most electric cars will come in with an outlet that you can just plug straight in and it'll charge, but at a pretty slow rate. This would be feasible for plug-in hybrids, but once you get into the full battery EVs above that, this will be pretty slow and probably only used in emergency situations. It wouldn't be your primary method of charging unless you're really not driving very much. So then you would step up to level 2, which is what most EV owners have installed in their garages or at workplace charging areas like that. You see these a lot also at grocery stores or movie theaters. And so these will charge a bit faster, and these will plug into a standard washer dryer outlet and have lower installation costs compared to DC fast charging, or you may hear called level 3. And these use 480 volt plugs and require substantial upgrades typically to be installed and have much higher installation costs. But these will charge a battery, like it says there, several hundred miles within an hour. And so when you see manufacturers saying, it'll charge in 30 minutes, they're speaking about DC fast charging. And so the batteries will charge extremely fast, up to about 80%, or then they'll kind of slow off to save the battery and battery health. But DC fast charging is how you get there, and what we're looking to build out along all the major interstates and such to enable road tripping with EVs and have more of that quick fueling experience that people are used to with gasoline and diesel powered cars. And so just some background here on some data we have, and this is also all available on our website at dfwcleancities.org/EVNT. So here you can see EV registrations in Texas for December of this year compared to the same point last year. And you can see they're up 50% statewide, and we now are about to break 240,000 electric vehicles registered across the entire state. And you can see DFW is kind of leading that, and it's been the trend for the past few months. Austin is a bit higher percentage-wise, but statewide, we're hovering around 1% of all registered vehicles are electric. And then we're also seeing the number of stations grow. And so if you go to this webpage that we have, this map is available and all this data, we post it every month to download. And we have a great tool using Microsoft Power BI where you can like zoom in all the way down to the zip code level and see where these EVs are registered and what models they are and things like that. So I find that really interesting to dig into. And you can really see on the map that all the counties that have some level of shading of that pink or orange color have at least one electric vehicle registered. So these are really all across the state, not just in the urban areas. Even the rural areas are seeing some sort of electrification happening. And I just want to quickly highlight some upcoming projects that we have going on regarding EV charging and EV charging infrastructure. So first three here are focused on light duty charging. And so we're really working to make sure this is distributed equitably, making sure that everyone in the region has access to charging. A lot of the focus from federal money right now is on Justice 40 and underserved communities. So that's a big focus of our work. And like I mentioned earlier, making sure it's resilient and reliable. So making sure these charging stations work when people pull up to them and that they don't bring down the grid if people start charging on them. And so that's where a lot of these projects are going right now. So the first one there, the Texas EV Infrastructure Plan, that is part of the National Electric Vehicle Infrastructure Formula Program, and then it's being distributed through TxDOT through the Texas EV Infrastructure Plan. And then for phase two of that plan, our region will be receiving $64.5 million that we will help TxDOT determine exactly where those stations will be located and what kind of charge stations those will be, like level 2 or DC fast that I mentioned earlier, and how many connectors and stalls they'll have. And then we also just submitted a few grants over the summer. Those last three are pending grant requests. The first two are related to EV charging infrastructure. The first one is one we just submitted to repair and replace existing stations and upgrade them to the new federal NEVI standards to have more stalls and higher speeds. And then we also submitted one to build out more charging stations for communities throughout the region and using specialized teams to streamline that implementation, since these projects can have some delays, and we want to work to diminish that as much as we can. And then the last one is on the heavy duty side, where we want to make sure that the heavy duty sector also has a chance to electrify and has infrastructure to support those efforts. And so we submitted a request for up to 5 hydrogen refueling stations all across Texas Triangle. 2 of those were in DFW, one at the Alliance Fort Worth area, and then the other in the South Dallas Inland Port. So we do have some projects underway in the hydrogen side as well. So to get involved with these efforts and all of our other efforts, we want to highlight a few opportunities here for y'all. First is our regional EV infrastructure working group. So this group meets once a month to coordinate EV infrastructure efforts across North Texas. That's primarily geared towards local governments, but anyone is welcome to join. We have a lot of vendors there as well that offer EV charging infrastructure. And next month on January 17th, we're actually having a small EV charging expo at our offices. So if y'all are interested in learning more, this could be a great place to see. We're hoping to have a few vendors there of different sectors of EV charging infrastructure and some presentations. And it'll just be a couple hours long. It'll come check out what they have on offer. And then also we partner a lot with Encore Electric Delivery in the region. So Encore has recently launched the Encore Evolution program, where they're looking for potential EV charging station owners to submit their information to help Encore plan for grid load. And then they also join this recurring meeting series that we also present at. We just had one on Tuesday. I believe the next one will be in March. But this is a place where you can really get a lot of great info from Encore that may not be like on their website and things like that about how these projects will work and how you can get EV charging station installed, what the timeline will look like. If you want to integrate solar or battery storage, they go over that as well. So it's a great opportunity. And then if you sign up for the portal, you're also eligible for the managed EV charging study. And this can provide incentive of $10,000 up to $25,000 for projects that have at least 5 EV chargers or 2 medium or heavy duty electric vehicles. And so this is kind of an early study that they're doing right now, but this might be spun out into a full program at some point. But they're really just trying to gauge interest and look at how managed EV charging can affect the grid. They're offering incentive for that at this point. And then another opportunity as we do more infrastructure planning is the TxDOT Interactive EV Charging Plan Map. So this is, I mentioned, part of the Texas EV infrastructure plan that TxDOT is leading. And so they have this great map online where you can zoom all the way down to an exact street level and see, you can say on the map, leave a comment, I want a charging station here and here's why, or this area, the charging station is always full, so we need another one, things like that. And so we'll be looking at the feedback in our region on that map when we're distributing phase 2 of that plan that I mentioned. So if y'all go here, want to mention specific areas that you think need a charger, that would be great. And that'll be something we'll be incorporating into phase 2 of our planning. And then lastly here, I'll have a couple slides on it, but I also want to mention workplace charging. And we want to give a few more information on that for y'all, so I'll get into that in a second. But all these are linked. If you all have any questions, just let me know. And so a few more details on workplace charging. So we really like that graphic down the bottom. It's easy to kind of forget about workplace charging sometimes, but it is kind of the secondary way for people to charge, and it's the most common after charging at home. So like I said, most EV owners do charge at home, and then you will charge in public, in a pinch or if you're doing a longer trip. But that's really a small fraction of the use case, and the rest is all charging at work. And that really can help employees feel, less range anxiety, improve job satisfaction, and they also typically have cost savings since public charging is much more expensive than home. And so it can kind of be a good solution for those, especially for those unable to charge at home. So right now, working a lot on like multifamily areas and how to charge at those and what that process will look like. But charging at work can be a good step in the interim of allowing people to charge and own an EV if they aren't able to install one at their own. And then it also, of course, has the benefits for the employer, help meet ESG goals and earn certification points for the LEED programs. So it's just really a great opportunity here to offer charging at a workplace. And it's something that we've partnered with the local Empower project on, which is a Department of Energy program that provides outreach and education for workplace charging. So if any of y'all are employers interested in providing EV charging or is something you're interested in learning more about, we can provide some resources. There's also a quick pledge that you're able to sign. That's not a committal or anything, but just shows that you're look at providing EV charging at the workplaces. And so if y'all already offer this, we'd love to hear about it and see how that's working. And so please reach out and let us know. But it's a project that we've just spun up. I'm really excited about it. And so this is a larger program nationwide, and then we're kind of the local affiliate of it. And a few more details on EV parking infrastructure specifications. And so this is really important to look at as you're starting new construction. There are different levels of EV parking readiness. So first there you see is EV capable. And so that's just the electrical panel and the conduit. And then EV ready has the full circuit. And then EV installed will have the actual EV charging station and be completely ready to charge. And so when you're looking at these projects, it'll be much quicker, much more cost efficient to have these ready with new construction rather than tearing up new concrete after you've just installed it. And so this is really important to think about if you have new construction, to make sure you can have these spaces EV capable or EV ready or even EV installed. So it's much cheaper and quicker to go through and do that later rather than coming in with digging up new concrete and trenching all the conduit. And so there is some guidance out there on this. The International Code Council has released some model language that covers EV capable, EV ready, EV installed. And then the state of Dallas has their own new building standard for new construction. And so we have the table there on the city of Dallas code for new multifamily and commercial buildings of the specific number of EV capable and EV ready spaces required, depending on the amount of parking spaces. And this is taken straight from the building code on City of Dallas website. And here we just want to spend a couple slides going over funding opportunities. So on the vehicle side, there is a tax credit for electric vehicles, and this will fund 15% of the purchase price for plug-in hybrids or 30% for EVs and fuel cell vehicles. And the tax credit is also available as a direct pay option for entities that don't pay taxes and are tax exempt. And at the state level, TCQ, the state environmental agency, also has the light duty motor vehicle rebate open right now. Last we heard, there's about 500 of these left, so they'll probably go pretty quick, maybe early into 2024, if not be gone by then. And this will fund up to $2,500 off the purchase of a electric vehicle, plug-in hybrid, or fuel cell. And then also TCQ has the Volkswagen Environmental Mitigation Program. And so this is part of the Volkswagen settlement money that flows to the states. There's about 5 million left for our region, and this will fund up to 100% of the project costs for governmental entities or 75% for non-governmental entities for the replacement of an existing heavy-duty diesel equipment with electric. So it's a great opportunity to start electrifying vehicles right now.
Jared, can you talk a little bit more about that? You said there's about $5 million left. Um, what does that mean? Like, what can you use it toward? Because I have a lot of folks here that are private building owners. And so if you could just elaborate a little bit for them.
Yeah. So on this program, it's split into different categories. And so I say 5 million, speaking to all those categories combined. But I need to look exactly what they are. But the first one is like class 4 to 8, like freight vehicles, which could be like box trucks, things like that, would be eligible. And then there's also ones for like ground support equipment for like airports, other like heavy duty equipment that is off-road, so construction equipment, things like that. So really just anything that is a larger diesel vehicle, either on-road or off-road, would be eligible. And it's just split into different buckets, but each one has over 1 million available currently. And those will all be eligible for up to 75% for private entities of the incremental cost, which is basically the entire cost of the vehicle minus $1,000. That's just 75% of the entire cost. And it will also include a certain amount for infrastructure to charge these vehicles. This grant will not just fund the vehicle, but will also provide some money to get the infrastructure installed to start charging that vehicle. But it will require replacement of an existing vehicle and scrappage of one. So there'll have to be an older vehicle that'll be destroyed and replaced with a new electric vehicle.
Okay, and then that link will kind of talk about the buckets and in more detail if I send that link out.
Yeah, and we have some information on this if anyone's interested. We already have a slide on this, just didn't include it here for time, but that breaks down all these buckets and how much is left for our region specifically, because TCQ doesn't do a great job of breaking all that down. If you dig through their website, it's not super intuitive, but we have that all kind of summarized. And so for some funding on the infrastructure side, there is also an infrastructure tax credit that is up to 30% if it's in an eligible location. And the deadline to apply is going to be for the next 10 years as part of it being approved with the IRA. And so there's a lot of qualifications to receive this tax credit, and the percentage may change depending on the area. But again, this also has a direct pay option for tax exempt entities. And then there is also a state program. So this is one thing I want to highlight is the TERP Alternative Fueling Facilities Program. This is again through TCQ and expected to open in January. So this is going to be the next program they open coming up very soon. And this funds new construction of alternative fuel infrastructure, which includes electric vehicle charging stations. And so this will fund up to $600,000 or 50% for an EV charging station project. And historically, this may change, but typically these programs don't change that much. This has funded prioritized publicly accessible infrastructure. And so that'll be the main priority of this program and what will get most of the funding. And so this is something that we'll be posting as soon as it becomes available. We expect this to be available early in January 2024 is what TCQ has said. So we'll see how close they make that deadline that they set. But we do expect it at some point in January. And there are also programs for rural areas. The Department of Agriculture has business development grants that can be used for EV charging stations. And then I mentioned the National Electric Vehicle Infrastructure Program. I was speaking on phase 2 of the plan that we'll be implementing, but phase 1 has just reopened for 6 specific study areas that TxDOT is looking to fund. And so those are listed there in Burleson, Laredo, Sandy Oaks, Luling, Natalia, and Cotulla. And that'll fund up to 80% of the project for public accessible DC fast charging stations. And so this is closed for the other like 48 study areas, but they reopened just for these 6 to get more applications, and that'll close in the next week or so. And all these are posted on our website at nctcog.org/aqfunding. We keep that up to date with all the latest funding opportunities, and we also have a great spreadsheet on there that we also keep up to date of what's currently open, but also the whole universe of funding and when we expect it to be open next. And so we do try to do a good job of tracking that, and happy to offer more information if you have any questions from these programs. All right, and just wrapping up here, I just want to highlight a few projects that we have kicking off soon. So the first 4 of these are all projects that we applied for and were awarded from the Department of Energy. And so you can see there's a lot of work going on infrastructure space and EV charging. There's projects here for workforce development, drone delivery for disadvantaged communities, making sure that municipalities are as EV friendly as possible, so that process can be streamlined as far as like permitting and construction, things like that. And then also making sure that these charging stations are resilient and reliable. So yeah, I just want to highlight that we have a lot going on in these, and if you hear something from us on these projects coming soon, because these projects are now starting up, and we're looking to get some more involvement in them from our stakeholders. And we also want to highlight the Dallas-Fort Worth Air Quality Improvement Plan. So we have a QR code you can scan there, or a URL, publicinput.com/GFWAQIP. And so our region is receiving some funding as part of the Climate Pollution Reduction Grants. And to receive that funding and implement funding opportunities with that funding, we have to include those in the Air Quality Improvement Plan. So at this point, we're looking to get as much feedback as possible very quickly here. So if y'all can complete this as soon as you can to get funding ideas for our region. And the ideas that y'all provide will be used in conjunction with all the other feedback we receive to structure potential funding programs. And we're really looking for things that aren't covered under existing federal and state programs to make sure we can fill in those gaps. And so this can be anything y'all can think of. There's projects you've been looking at, but there just hasn't been the funding to provide for that, and it has a higher capital cost, but it will have some air quality benefits and emissions reductions. That'll be something we'll consider and including in the actual grants that we are able to disperse as part of this improvement plan. And so we have a whole other team here that's working really hard on this. And so right now we're trying to get as much feedback as we possibly can to start implementing this plan and submitting it to the EPA. But yeah, that's everything I have. There's our contact information and our website and our Clean Cities email. And we also have a great email list that y'all can sign up for on our website. That'll get y'all weekly emails from us on funding opportunities, events we have going on, things like that. But always feel free to reach out if you have questions on anything I mentioned today.
Perfect. Sounds great. Are there any questions? I know, Jared, I emailed you some questions. Did you want to maybe go over those 2 first?
Yeah, I can go over those real quick unless there's any others. All right. So first question that you sent me over, Selena. The question was, with renters comprising the majority of residents in Dallas, how will the transition to EVs accelerate when the majority of multifamily Class B and C owners are limited to a 6% commercial charging tax credit for installing EV chargers? And so I'm not sure exactly what the 6% there was referring to. I believe it might be the commercial tax credit. And I think that 6% applies to appreciating buildings. But one thing to think of, like I mentioned, with installing EV charging infrastructure, is to install it with new construction, and that can greatly reduce costs, so you don't have to spend time, like I mentioned, destroying concrete and relaying it and installing conduit. But if the tax credit and other federal programs, even if you account for new construction, aren't enough to offset that cost, then that would be a great opportunity to let us know in that air quality improvement plan that I mentioned. So feedback for that plan could be integrated into potential funding programs. And so if there's something that you're looking at, but the tax credit isn't enough and no federal programs apply, then submit it as part of the survey for the air quality improvement plan. And then the other question was for downtown Dallas office buildings, are there council governments or city of Dallas incentives for owners to lead in the adoption of EVs and incentivize drivers to help manage ERCOT peak grid load? by EV charging during optimized times of the workday. So there aren't any incentives we're currently offering at the Council of Governments or that I know from City of Dallas. We did offer some funding over the summer to install EV charging stations, and that wasn't specific to grid load and things like that. But Encore, like I mentioned, does have their limited EV charging study right now, and that'll provide up to 10,000 or 10,000 up to 25,000 for qualifying projects. And that's where they're specifically looking at how that'll affect the grid. But Encore is a great resource there as far as not only that funding opportunity, but also resources to make sure your project will work with the grid. They're really trying to get information now on what these projects will look like over the next few years so they can plan their infrastructure installations and make sure that the grid will be there to support it. So it's definitely something they're looking at.
Okay. Do we have any other questions or comments for Jared since we have him on? No? Okay. Great.
Great information.
Oh, thank you, Jackie. Yeah, I know this was really great information. I know that we have an upcoming session coming up. We'll talk about it a little later in the meeting, but on the 25th of January, we're doing available programs and incentives for commercial real estate facilities with the COG Encore. And so hopefully, I know that I think Susan will be leading that one from the COG, and she's going to be talking about a little more detail about some of these programs and an extension of not just EVs, but other things as well. So super excited about that. Are you sure there are no questions? And if there are later on, you can always email me or I can send out Jared's information and hopefully you can connect with him as well. I can send out some of these links as well. Some of them looked interesting. So I'll send that out to you guys with our meeting notes on Monday. If you need it before, just shoot me an email and I can get that sent over to you. Last call for questions.
Just going to say it's a great overview. Thank you, Jared.
Yeah, thank y'all.
All right. Well, we will. Well, Jared, thank you again for, you are more than welcome to stay on for our meeting and give us your input as well. So we're super excited about this information and hopefully maybe we'll talk about a little bit of it during the meeting. But I wanted to thank you so much for, all that knowledge and information because it's super helpful to get us started, in 2024, with all this the IRA bill and all the EV stuff that's happening. It's exciting on, an individual level and also at a district level with all of our different buildings and vendors and community members. So thank you so much for that information. I recorded this session as well. Or this meeting part, and I'll put it up on our YouTube channel. So if you missed anything or needed just to take another look at it, I'll send out that link as well.
Thanks for having me.